All right, for number 13, we have to find d squared y over dx squared, which really means the second derivative for all of these three questions. Okay, so in order to get the second derivative, we have to go to the first derivative. For a, y prime is equal to derivative of x cubed, 3x squared, minus 3 cosine. 2x is inside the cosine, so it's not a product. The 3 is still going to be there. The derivative of cosine is negative sine. Inside stays the same. It's a chain rule. Then times the derivative of the inside, which is 2, plus the derivative of natural log, which is 1 over x. I'm actually going to go ahead and just clean this up a little bit. We've got 3x squared. Negative 3 times negative becomes plus 3 times 2, which is 6, sine 2x, plus, and I'm going to rewrite this as x to the negative 1. That will make my second derivative easier. All right, moving on to the second derivative. We've got y prime. The derivative of 3x squared is now 6x, plus 6 times the derivative of sine of 2x is going to be the cosine of 2x. Don't forget that chain again, times the derivative of 2x, which is 2, plus derivative of x to the negative 1, bring the negative 1 down. We've got negative 1 x to the negative 2. Let's clean this up a little bit more. We've got 6x plus 6 times 2, which is 12, cosine of 2x, plus, let's put this up here, negative 1 over x squared. And this is your answer. All right, moving on to b. We've got, I'm going to rewrite this, y is equal to 4x minus 3 to the 1/2 power. So now the first derivative is a blob to the 1/2. So according to the chain rule, we do the 1/2 first. 1/2, blob stays the same to the negative 1/2. Multiply it by the derivative of blob, which is going to be 4. I'm going to clean that up a little bit. I'm going to multiply the 1/2 times the 4, and that becomes 2. 4x minus 3 to the negative 1/2. I'm not bothering to rewrite it because I know I want to take the derivative again. So now if I take the derivative of this, I get y double prime. Oh, I should have written that over there. Y double prime. Still, we've got 2. Constants stay there as long as they're being multiplied. They stay there. So 2 times blob to the negative 1/2. So bring the negative 1/2 down. Negative 1/2. Blob stays the same. Power 1 less, so negative 1/2 minus 1 is negative 3/2 times the derivative of the blob, which is 4. Again, so we've got y double prime is equal to 2 times a negative 1/2 is actually negative 1, and negative 1 times 4 is negative 4. And now that's all of these numbers, and this whole term gets put in the denominator because it has a negative exponent. So that's 4x minus 3 to the 3/2 power. All right, moving on a little bit to c. This is an implicit one. This is probably the most complicated second derivative that you could have. Okay, so let's look at c. We've got x squared plus y squared equals 25. This is an implicit because there's no y equals equation. So now every time I take the derivative, I have to follow it up with d, whatever I just took the derivative of, dx. Derivative of 2x squared is 2x, dx, which is just 1, plus the derivative of y squared is 2y, dy dx, equals the derivative of 25 is actually 0. Move the 2x to the other side, so we get 2y dy dx equals negative 2x. Divide both sides by 2y, and we get that dy dx is equal to, I'm going to cancel out the 2, so negative x over y. All right, second derivative, I have to take the derivative of the derivative. So the second derivative here, d squared y over dx squared is equal to, now I have to use a quotient rule. So quotient rule says low, which is y, times the derivative of the top, which is negative 1 dx dx, minus high, which is negative x, times the derivative of y, which is 1 dy dx, over low squared. All right, let's clean this up a little bit. We've got negative y plus x times dy dx over y squared. Here's the tricky part. We have a value for dy dx, so we can actually take this value and plug it in here. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to take, stays exactly the same, negative y plus x, and now instead of dy dx, I'm going to replace that with negative x over y squared. All right, so this is a fraction, which is x times negative x, or basically negative x squared. So we have negative y minus x squared over y squared. We need to combine these terms in the numerator. They need to both have the same denominator to do that. So in order to get a y in that denominator, I'm going to multiply this y up front by y over y, which gives me a y in the denominator. Now our equation looks like negative y squared minus x squared all over y, and we're dividing it by y squared, which is the same thing as, if you go back to our regular pre-algebra kind of class, dividing is the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal. The reciprocal of y squared is 1 over y squared. So, finally, the last answer is going to be negative y squared minus x squared times 1, so it's going to stay the same, over y times y squared, which is y cubed. Done.